Hello everyone. Hope you are doing well there. Stay healthy and stay at home. Welcome to my presentation. Here I'm Fiona. In this opportunity, I'll give you an exclusive discussion related to argument structures. This term is regarding to syntax. I begin my speaking to invite you understanding linguistics. Then I'll narrow it the syntax which will deliver the topic mainly talk about. Ladies and gentlemen, based on Crutch, language are sets of signs. Signs combine an exponent for a sequence of letters of sound with the meaning. Grammars are ways to generate signs from more basic signs. Signs combine a form and a meaning, and they are identical with neither their exponent nor with their meaning. By that we simply mean that it is a sign of sign. In linguistics, language signs are considered of four different levels such as phonology, morphology, syntax, and also semantics. Then the part of linguistics that deals with how words are put together into sentence is called syntax. On the other hand, words are not come from the smallest meaningful units of language. For example, I take the words dogs. Dogs is the plural of dog, the word dog, and as such it is formed by a regular process. And do we know only the meaning of dog, word dog, not dogs? We also know the meaning of dogs, right? So it can be concluded that syntax is the part of grammar that concerns itself with the structures of sentences. Now I'll introduce you the overall term discussed in the argument structures. There are several terms here: argument, lexical categorize, subject and object, adjunct, oblique, expert syntax, and proform. In linguistics, an argument is an expression that helps to complete the meaning of a predicate or verb belongs to sentences. Actually, most of predicates can take one, two, or three arguments. A predicate and its arguments form a predicate-argument structure. Here we'll discuss the structures of argument in some sample sentences. Then, lexical categorize. There are several tens of thousands of categories in a language, maybe even millions. Thus, the number of rules that we have to write is far too large to be written one by one. Due to the fact that, so we shall put to use the notations of attribute value structures. It can be abbreviated into AVSS, double S. The next distinction we want to make is that between a word and a phrase. The distinction is intimately connected with the notations of argument structures. The argument structure tells for each word that kinds of constituents it combines with to form a phrase. Finally, we can distinguish between the subject and object in a sentence. Then, verbs can have other arguments, ladies and gentlemen, beside the subject and object too. These are called oblique. Adjunct, word or phrase used to amplify or modify the meaning of another word or word in a sentence. We'll discuss how both the two terms oblique and adjunct work in a sentence structures. Continue my speaking. As in argument structures, the main thing to be known is expert syntax. It is a theory about the internal structure of syntactic constituents which was originally intended to place constraints on the power of phrase structures rules. Expert theory is also a theory of syntactic category formations. The last is about proforms. Proforms are such words that actually stand in for an unspecified word or phrase. Ladies and gentlemen, according to the terms involved in our discussions, let me show you studied from the first about X bar. Now, here about X bar syntax. X bar syntax is a general schema for phrase structure. We have to understand that word is different from phrase. Phrase is a group of two or more words that express a single idea but do not form a complete sentence. In X-bar syntax, every word projects a phrase consisting of up to two arguments and any number of adjuncts. Then, about lexical categories, we shall put to use our notations of attribute value structures or AVSS. We can abbreviate it attribute value structures into AVS. First, words fall into roughly two handful of so-called lexical or major categories. They're divided into noun and V stands for verb, adjective A, adv stands for adverb, P for prepositions, complementizer C, and D determiner, and then V tense. Look at the example here. Noun, there are the words or example words of noun such as car, house, storm, inside. While verb, run, eat, hasten, and crawl. Then adjective or adjective words that are greedy, raw, shiny, cheerful. Adverb words are very, steadily, down, and prepositions. For example, in, for, about, below, complementizer, that, which, because, and while. An example of determiner are a, e, d, this, and those. Now we notice that our first attribute is cat, C-I-T, and it has the values just displayed so far. They are noun, verb, adjective, adverb, prepositions, complementation, determiner, and tense belongs to the attribute of cat, ladies and gentlemen. Then we are going to discuss about subject and object. In these discussions, we need to make distinctions between word and phrase. Actually, the distinction is intimately connected with the notations of argument structure. The argument structure tells us for each word that kinds of constituents it combines to form a phrase. For example, when we take the verbs words run and accuse, there are distinctions within run and accuse. The difference between the two is that the word run is happy to combine with just one determinant phrase. Look at the sample of sentence in 154. The sailors run. The word run there only take one argument. The argument is the sailors, and the sailors is the form of determinant phrase. However, in the syntax, the expert agree that the sailors is the form of noun phrase because there is the noun there as the head, yeah, ladies and gentlemen. And then how about the second sentence in the sailors accused? The verb accused there, accused cannot stand alone without arguments after accused. Accused need complementizer. To make the letter into the sentence, it need to supply two more determinant phrases, one for the one who is accused, the sellers, and one for what he is accused of. So the sentence will be: the sailors accused the captain of treason. Seems in the sentence 156. So the differentiate between the word or the verb run and accuse is about the verb can stand alone or can only take one determinant phrase, and then the accused verb cannot. Okay. In the previous slide, you have seen that as for verb, they always have one argument. These arguments indicate as subject, ladies and gentlemen. The subject is that argument which is in the nominative case. You can recognize it by the form of pronoun. Look the sample of the subject: she, he, it, I, you, they, and they are the form of subject. They are nominative case. However, when we look at the accusative form such as her, him, me, us, and them, we cannot use it for subject, but we can use them, the accusative form such as her, him, me, us, and them for a direct object. It means that we can use the accusative forms pronouns to be direct object. We can put them after the verb or predicate in a sentence. See the example. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 examples of sentence. The first, they run. We can say that they is a subject and run is to be a verb or predicate. This is there is the form of nominative case. We cannot use them for subject, them run. This is wrong. Then the second, when we want to use they accuse the captain of treason, this is true, but it can be written as them accuse the captain of treason. Also, for the sentence the sailors accuse us of treason, this is true. We can use the nominative pronoun as the direct object as the sentence the sailors accuse me of treason. No. We need to understand the distinctions between the positions of subjects and direct object into nominative and accusative case. It can be concluded when we want to use pronoun as subject, we have to use accusative pronoun. Nominative pronouns, sorry. But for the direct object, we need to use accusative. Unless adverb are present, English puts the subject right before verb, and the object right after it. Look at the example. They accuse the captain of treason. We see that that word accuse is a verb, then they is a subject. The subject right before the verb, and then the captain of treason as object is right after accused as a verb or predicate. So this actually is another diagnostic for subject and object. The third argument is attrition. This is formed by using prepositions of treason. So it is called preposition phrase. Yeah, after we distinguish between subject and object in a sentence in the case of accusative and nominative pronouns, now we are going to differentiate between intransitive and transitive verbs. There are two kinds of verbs, intransitive and transitive. A verb is called intransitive if it has no direct object, otherwise, it is called transitive. You remember when we talk about or when we discuss about the verb accuse and run, we need to understand that run is intransitive. Why? Because the word run or the verb run can stand alone. It has no direct object there. However, meanwhile, the verb accuse it can it cannot stand alone. It the word accuse should have direct object. So the sentence will be completed. They accuse. We do not know who are being accused, but we know who is or the someone who accused is they, but we do not know the complete informations from the sentence they accuse. So accuse need the complementizer or need the complete informations, need direct object. They accuse the captain of treasons. However, in other hand, there is a verb that it can be transitive and intransitive. Look at the sample of the sentence in 162 and 63. We can compare between the first sentence and the second sentence. Both are complete sentence. Why? Because when we say the children are eating the cake, we know that the children are eating the cake. What food that eat by that is ate by the children is cake. However, when we say that the children are eating, this is no problem. Yeah. Also, verbs may also be both breathe and eat can occur but with and without a direct object. Yeah, that's true that words or the verb eat can be intransitive and also transitive. Such a verb is both transitive and intransitive. We say that it is used transitively if there is a direct object. Yeah. The next discussion is regarding to the schema structures. Linguists have therefore proposed the following schema. Constituents have two attributes. The first is major category and the second is projection level. The major category refers to the attribute value structures such as noun, verb, adverb, adjective, determiner, tense, and also adverb. Then the projection level here divided into some level. The levels are 0, 1, and 2. They are also called bar levels because they used to be denoted by overstrike bars. The other notations is D0 for determiner. So this the projection level is 0, and then D1 or D for determiner, first or intermediate projections. Meanwhile, determiner or the notations of D with the projection level 2 stand for or indicate as determiner phrase. Words are uniformly assigned level 0 words So the level of 0 indicate words. Then the level of 2, projection level of 2 indicate as phrases. So what we used to call a determiner is D is now as D0, and the representations of it and a determiner phrase DP is in the projection level D2. You may look the sample there in the schema structure 165. That is D with projection level 0. That indicates as determiner. So the schema structure will be the attribute values stands for D, and then the projection level is 0, and the schema structures indicate as the words determiner. Meanwhile, when we write down the schema structure, there available the attribute values D cat, and then the projection level is 2. It indicates that this is a determiner phrase. The start symbol is momentarily verb phrase. Now the rule in the sentence 166 says that a sentence is verb phrase. You may look there. There are 3 kinds of schema structures. All of them has indicated for certain case. Look at the first sample, the schema structure, attribute value cat v, and then projection level 2. It indicates as verb phrase because there is projection level 2. We know that the projection level 2 indicates as phrase, and then so the schema structures available or appears in that sample is indicate as verb phrase. Then D for determiner and projection level 2 is determiner phrase, while the projection level 1 and the right side verb is words, verb as words. Yeah. Thus, we further add an attribute VRS with the values plus and minus to prevent an intransitive from taking a direct object. In the schema structures, we write down the structure or we edit the structures of TRS with the values of plus. It indicates that the verb there has no direct object when the values appear as minus. However, or in other hand, when we see the TRS with the values of plus, it indicates that the verbs has a direct object. Remember when we compare between the words run and accuse, runs has no direct object, so when we write down or make the schema structure, we need to put down TRS with the value of minus. On the other hand, the word accuse need to the values of TRS plus. Thus, we further add an attribute TRS with values plus and minus to prevent an intransitive from taking a direct object. Look at the schema structures. When you see or when you find the attribute VRS with values of plus, it means that this verb or predicate needs or plus with direct objects be followed by direct objects. But When you find the attribute of TRS with the values of minus, it has no direct object. It doesn't follow by direct object, yeah, ladies and gentlemen. Then we should mention here the fact that some verbs want sentence as argument, not determinant phrase. The sentence must be opened with the complementation, usually that. Look at the sample. John believes that the earth is flat. Then compare with John knows that 2 plus 2 is var. These sentences are called object. They can replace by this or that, showing that they are either subject or object. They follow the verb, so they must be object. In the following example, they are subject. For example, that the earth is flat is believed by John. Then that the cat was eating his food annoyed the child. Now we continue to the terms of oblique arguments and adjunct. Verbs can have other arguments besides the subject and object. This term is called oblique. Let us add a new attribute, prep, as prepositions or whose value can be any of the prepositions of English. Then, the word accuse will get the following syntactic category. We knew that accuse need direct object of treations. Remember in the previous explanations. The schema structure will describe as the sentence in the sample sentence there. Phi, the attribute value for phi, verb, and then the projection level is 0 because the accused there is followed by prepositions, so we need to write down prep. The prepositions is of treations in the sentence, so we need to use preposition of, while TRS plus means that verb accuse has direct object. The direct object is of treason. This tells us that accuse want a subject because all verbs do, a direct object because it is transitive, and a preposition opened by of because this is how we define the meaning of prepositions of. To get the positioning of these phrases right, we propose the following rules. Prepositions of with the attribute value, verb, or phrase, and with the projection level. This one also similarly for every other preposition. Notice that we have used the feature preposition of also for prepositions. This makes sure that the right preposition appears at least in the structures. The rules say that the preposition is to be found to right of the direct object if there is one. This is generally the case. They found the gold in the river. We can say that they found in the river the gold, but we need to write down the right one is they found the gold. They found the gold in the river. They found in the river the gold. It has no sense. And then the pilot flew the airplane to Alaska. The pilot flew to Alaska the airplane. This is wrong, right? Indeed, we can observe that the above rules hold for arbitrary prepositional phrases, so we simply replace on by a placeholder, say. Now continue to the discussions of expert syntax. Expert syntax. The structures of preposition phrase look similar to that of transitive verb phrases, except that the subject is generally missing. This similarity exists across categories. We take as an example noun phrase. There exists not only noun as such, but nouns to, to take arguments. Look at the example. There is the notations between when we indicate the verb count is transitive, but count the horse is not a verb. We indicate count the horse. The counting of the horse is as the gerunds. The gerund wants the form object in a preposition opened by of. The counting of the horses. We can account for this in the same way as we did for verbs. We allow nouns to additionally have a feature preposition of or preposition in, and so on. And if they do, they can but need to add a preposition opened by corresponding prepositions. As you can see at the sample in the sentence there, the two rules are abbreviated as follows. The brackets around in item say that is optional for completeness. Let us note that we have the following rules. A preposition opened by about has mostly the meaning concerning. One indication is that English has the following general rules. To translate the schema or the X-bar structure there, this translates into words that the say phrasal adjunct are always on the right, while first level adjunct are either on the right on the left. The projections of X to the right is called the head. Then, this is a code specifier of the phrase. The one in rule 200 with the notation of E is called the complement. Finally, YP in rules 200B, C, and D is called an accent adjunct. The last discussion is about proform. Proform is a word or lexical unit that is dependent for its meaning or reference to some other part of the content or sentence in which it occurs. For example, a pronoun replacing a noun or noun phrase, or a verb replacing a clause is a type of function word or expression that stand in for, express the same content as another word, phrase, clause, or sentence where the meaning is recoverable from the context. They are used either to avoid repetitive expressions or in quantifications, limiting the variables of proposition. In English, the most common proforms are pronouns, but other words such as here, there, so, not, and do can also function as proforms. The proforms is referring word in a sentence. The word or word group that's referred is the antecedents. Look at the sample sentence. John wrote a good essay. Full stop. And Paul also wrote a good one. In the case of this sentence, there is full stop. But when we want to make the sentence, the first sentence followed by the second sentence, we need proforms. Yeah. John wrote a good essay. Yeah, good essay, full stop, and Paul also wrote a good one. Can stand together when we add proform. In that connection, we should also mention the question. We can use to make the first sentence, John wrote a good essay and Paul also wrote a good one, we need to add and, the proform and. So, between the first sentence and the second sentence can stand into uh, one sentence and complete sentence. We know that when John wrote an essay, Paul also did as well. John wrote an essay and Paul did as well. So here the proforms help the sentence, the combinations between the first sentence and the second sentence can uh, work together in one sentence. To connect between the first sentence John wrote a good essay, we need to put down proform and, so the both the sentence are connected. In that connections, we should also mention the question word. When we want to write down some sentences or to combine two sentences, we also can use or mention the question words such as who, what, where, why, and so on. And also the dative such as this, those, so, and so on, and etc., which also are phrasal. And then who and what are determined phrase, why and where are prepositional. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that's all about my explanations. Before I close my speaking, I want to give you a brief summary of my presentations. The first thing we have to understand about argument structures. In the argument structures, we need to understand that in a sentence, there will be any one, two, or three arguments. Yeah. Then, to indicate the arguments, we have to notice the first, find the predicate. Here we can see verb in the sentence. So, the word except the predicate will be an argument. Then, classify the words category, noun, verb, and etc. Word and phrase. Then, third, describe an event so the meaning of the whole sentence will be completed. Then the last or the fourth, let a predicate and its arguments form a predicate argument structures. This is the brief summary of indicating arguments. And then the second is about distinctions between subject and object. We need to compare between accusative and nominative case. In the simple example, when we want to use subject, we have to use nominative case such as I, you, they, we, and etc. Then when we want to use object, we need to use accusative form, subject and object. And then oblique. How about oblique? Oblique refers to the arguments or arguments in the structures, also an argument structures. It refers to a preposition such as of, such as, and etc. And then about the proform here indicates the or the additional words that complete or to combine between two sentences into the complete sentence one. And then X bar syntax is about the schema structures. We have understand about how to write down the schema structures of phrase and words in a sentence. There are several examples there. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, the last but not least, thank you. I'm very sorry if there are so many mistakes in my speaking. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.